Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today we are traveling to the sun-scorched canyons of Jordan to discuss one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 21st century. If you have ever watched the film Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, you know the climax. Harrison Ford rides into a narrow canyon, looks up at a massive, rose-red facade carved into the cliff, and enters to find the Holy Grail. That building is real. It is Al-Khwarizmi, the Treasury of Petra. For decades, it has been the face of ancient mystery. But in August 2024, reality finally overtook fiction. A team of archaeologists unearthed a secret that has been hidden beneath the feet of millions of tourists for 2,000 years. They found a tomb containing 12 ancient skeletons and, in a twist of irony, a ceramic chalice that looks suspiciously like a holy grail. In this episode, we are going to skip the fluff and dive deep into the details of this excavation, the science used to find it, and what these 12 skeletons tell us about the lost civilization of the Nabataeans. To understand why this discovery is so shocking, we first need to look at the location. The Treasury is the most famous monument in Petra. It stands 40 meters high at the end of the Sick, the narrow gorge that leads into the city. For a long time, archaeologists suspected that the ground beneath the Treasury held secrets, but excavating a UNESCO World Heritage Site is a logistical nightmare. You cannot simply start digging holes in front of a wonder of the world. However, a precedent was set in 2003. Back then, archaeologists discovered a series of tombs beneath the right side of the Treasury facade. Unfortunately, those tombs had been looted in antiquity and damaged by flash floods. But it raised a question. If there were tombs on the right, could there be tombs on the left? It took 2 decades to answer that question. In 2024, Dr. Pierce Paul Kreisman, the executive director of the American Center of Research, finally received permission to investigate the left side of the courtyard. They did not start with shovels. They brought in the heavy science. Dr. Richard Bates, a geophysicist from the University of St. Andrews, used ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, and electromagnetic conductivity sensors. This technology allows scientists to see underground without lifting a single stone. By sending radio pulses into the earth, they measure how the signals reflect back. Solid rock bounces back differently than loose soil, and crucially, it bounces back differently than empty space. As Bates dragged his sensors across the pink dust of the plaza, the data revealed clear anomalies. There were voids beneath the pavement on the left side that matched the dimensions of the tombs found 20 years earlier. The data was screaming that something was down there. With the radar map in hand, the team began the physical excavation. They lifted the heavy flagstones of the courtyard. As they cleared the dirt, the outline of a tomb emerged. But this moment was different from the 2003 excavation. The seal on this tomb was intact. It had not been looted. When the team breached the chamber, they were hit with the heavy, stale air of a space that had been closed off for nearly 2,000 years. Inside, their flashlights revealed a crowded room. Lying in the dust were the skeletal remains of at least 12 individuals. These skeletons were articulated, meaning the bones were still arranged in their correct anatomical positions. They had not been scattered by grave robbers or animals. Surrounding them was a treasure trove of grave goods, including bronze artifacts, iron implements, and ceramics. Now, here is where the story gets cinematic. Among the grave goods, one of the skeletons was found holding a ceramic vessel. It was the top of a broken jug, shaped distinctly like a chalice. Seeing an ancient skeleton holding a cup in the exact location where Indiana Jones found the Holy Grail was a surreal moment for the team. But scientifically, that cup is more valuable than a movie prop. It, along with the other pottery, helps date the tomb. The ceramics found are typical of Nabataean fineware. This is a specific type of pottery that is so thin and delicate, it is often called eggshellware. It was a major status symbol in the ancient world. Based on this pottery and the metal artifacts, preliminary analysis places the burial between the mid-1st century BC and the early 2nd century AD. This is the golden age of Petra. This leads us to the big question. Who were the 12 people buried in this tomb? Location in the ancient world was everything. You do not get buried beneath the most prominent monument in the city, unless you are someone of immense importance. The prevailing theory is that the treasury was built as a mausoleum for a Nabataean king, likely King Aretas IV. He ruled from roughly 9 BC to 40 AD, which aligns perfectly with the dating of the artifacts. If the treasury is his mausoleum, the 12 individuals buried beneath it are likely members of the royal family. They could be his children, his wives, or his highest-ranking generals and ministers. The fact that there are 12 of them suggests this was a family crypt used over a generation. The condition of the remains offers us a rare opportunity to learn about their lives, but it also presents a challenge. Petra is prone to violent flash floods. Over 2 millennia, water has seeped into the porous sandstone. Some of the skeletons were found with mold, and the humidity has made the bones extremely fragile. Excavating them required the delicate touch of surgical instruments. However, now that they have been removed and transported to labs, the real scientific work begins. Researchers are currently attempting to extract ancient DNA from the inner ear bones and teeth. This is notoriously difficult in desert environments because heat degrades genetic material, but if they succeed, the DNA results will be revolutionary. DNA could tell us if these 12 people are related. Are we looking at a father, mother, and children? A dynasty? It could also reveal their genetic origins. Did they originate in Petra, or did they come from the Arabian Peninsula? This connects to the broader history of the Nabataeans. The people who built Petra are one of history's most enigmatic civilizations. We have almost no written records from them, no history books, no biographies. We know them almost exclusively through archaeology. We know they began as nomadic Arab tribes who migrated north into Jordan around the 4th century BC. Initially, they refused to build houses or plant crops, believing that owning property made a man a slave to whoever could conquer his land. So how did these nomads end up building a city like Petra? The answer is incense and water. The Nabataeans controlled the trade routes for frankincense and myrrh. These aromatic resins were harvested in southern Arabia, modern-day Yemen and Oman, and were essential for religious rituals across the Mediterranean. The Greeks, Romans, and Egyptians burned tons of incense every year. The Nabataeans became the middlemen, transporting these goods across the desert. They became fabulously wealthy, and by the 1st century BC, they decided to settle down. They built Petra not just as a capital, but as a safe deposit box for their wealth. To understand the lives of the 12 skeletons, we have to look at another scientific test being performed: strontium isotope analysis. Strontium is a natural element found in soil and water. As a child grows, strontium from their food and water gets locked into their tooth enamel. Because different geological regions have different strontium signatures, scientists can analyze a tooth and tell you exactly where that person grew up. They will compare the strontium in the teeth, which represents childhood, to the strontium in the bones, which represents adulthood. If the signatures match, the person lived and died in Petra. If they differ, the person was an immigrant. Given that Petra was a trade hub, finding foreigners buried in such a high-status royal tomb would change our understanding of Nabataean society. Osteologists are also looking at the bones for signs of diet and disease. Carbon and nitrogen isotopes can reveal what they ate. Did they have a diet high in meat, which was a luxury? Did they eat fish imported from the Red Sea? The wear patterns on their joints will tell us if they did hard labor or lived a life of leisure. Given the location of the tomb, it is highly likely these were individuals who lived in luxury, supported by the immense wealth of the incense trade. This discovery also forces us to reevaluate the treasury itself. For centuries, Bedouin legends claim the urn on top of the monument was filled with gold. You can still see bullet marks on the stone urn where people tried to shoot it open. But the treasury was never a bank, it was a memorial. The discovery of these tombs confirms the theory that the elaborate facade was a tombstone, and the real chambers were cut into the rock beneath. This was a standard Nabataean practice. The facade was for the living to admire, the underground chamber was for the dead to rest. But Petra was not just a city of the dead. These 12 individuals lived in a thriving metropolis. The Nabataeans were master hydraulic engineers. They did not just find water, they tamed it. The city is ringed by a complex system of dams, channels, and ceramic pipes that controlled flash floods and diverted water into cisterns. They had pressurized water systems that fed fountains, baths, and even a massive swimming pool in the middle of the desert. This was a psychological power play. It showed visitors, dusty merchants arriving from the harsh desert, that the Nabataeans had mastered nature itself. The 12 people found in the tomb would have walked these streets, bathed in these pools, and worshipped in the temples that dotted the city. The excavation of the treasury tomb is far from over. As the labs process the DNA and isotope data, we are on the verge of meeting the people who built the rose-red city face to face. We might finally understand the family dynamics of the kings who defied Rome. We might learn where they came from and how they lived. This discovery reminds us that even in the most famous places on Earth, places we think we know inside and out, there are still secrets waiting to be found. The treasury was indeed a vault, just not for gold. It was a vault for history, and after 2,000 years, the door has finally been opened. Thank you for listening to G Fun Facts Online.